Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's case is a very special one. And before we dive into the case, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please drop the country you're tuning in from in the comments below. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel, and your comments can help bring attention to cases that need more eyes. Now, let's get into today's story. One that is both heartbreaking and filled with haunting questions that remain unanswered. On the night of February 9th, 2025, 18-year-old Megan Trussell left her dorm at the University of Colorado Boulder. It was a Super Bowl Sunday, a night that many of us spend watching a game or hanging out with friends, but for Megan, this night would mark the beginning of a tragic and mysterious turn of events. Megan was last seen leaving her dorm at approximately 9:52 p.m. She was wearing her favorite red pants, a black t-shirt, and a light denim jacket, a look that seemed completely normal for a young woman heading out on a chilly evening. Megan had a few personal items with her that night. A blue and pink crossbody purse with a star on it, which her mother had specially made for her, and white platform shoes. But despite what seemed like an ordinary night for a college student, things would soon take a dark turn. It wasn't until days later, when Megan's mother, Vanessa, realized she hadn't heard from her daughter, that the unease began to set in. Megan had been active on social media, texting her family and attending her classes. So when Vanessa checked her phone records, she was alarmed to discover that Megan hadn't used her phone since 8:45 p.m. on that Sunday evening. Something wasn't right. After contacting Megan's roommate and the university, it became clear that Megan was missing. Megan's family had no choice but to drive to Boulder and report her missing to the campus police. But the initial response was anything but reassuring. Campus authorities suggested that Megan might simply be couch surfing, dismissing the situation as something that often happens with students in college. Megan's family was told to wait, assuming she would show up. But as the hours stretched into days with no sign of her, their concerns only deepened. It wasn't until 2 days after her disappearance, when Megan's sister Lindsay went to the dorm to look for clues, that the campus police began to take the situation more seriously. But it wasn't until the 3rd day, after her parents demanded action, that the search for Megan intensified. By that time, Megan's parents were already desperate, combing through her phone records, asking around and pleading for answers. Using a combination of surveillance footage, phone records, and keycard access logs, investigators pieced together Megan's last known movements. At approximately 9:17 p.m., Megan's boyfriend, who had been visiting her, decided to leave after an argument with her roommate. Just 20 minutes later, at 9:36 p.m., Megan was seen leaving her dorm on campus alone. Her purse and her prized custom-made crossbody bag were still in her possession. After that, surveillance footage was completely lost. No one could confirm where she went or what she did next. But it wasn't until several days later, when Megan's body was discovered, that the mystery began to unfold with even more disturbing details. 6 days after she was last seen, park rangers, while following up on a lead, found Megan's body lying near the bottom of a steep embankment in Boulder Canyon. The scene was as baffling as it was haunting. Megan's body was found in a location that could only be accessed by rappelling down the slope. She was dressed in the same clothes she had been wearing when she was last seen. However, there were no signs of struggle around the area, just evidence of her fall, a broken stick near her body, dirt and debris under her fingernails, and other unsettling clues. The injuries found on Megan's body told a complicated story. She had scrapes, bruises, and contusions across her arms, legs, and face. But there was no sign of fatal trauma from her fall. She had broken teeth, and yet the medical examiner had concluded that no external injury had contributed to her death. When Megan's family received the autopsy report, they were left in shock. There were signs of a struggle, bruises and abrasions on Megan's body, with clear indications that she had fought hard. But despite these injuries, the coroner had ruled Megan's death a suicide, citing overdose due to amphetamines found in her stomach, with exposure to the cold as a contributing factor. This didn't sit right with Megan's family. They knew their daughter. Megan was happy and thriving in college, and there was no history of suicidal ideation. But things took a more bizarre turn when it was discovered that Megan's purse and phone were missing. The phone was found weeks later, in the hands of a homeless man named Elliot Buffer, who had sold it at an EcoATM. The phone had been wiped clean, and no further data could be recovered. But there were hints from her phone's activity logs that she had been in the Boulder Canyon area on February 13th, days after her body was discovered. Megan's family was baffled. How could she have died on the 9th, but still be sending data through her phone days later? The deeper they dug, the more questions arose. The discovery of her purse, torn at the clasp, something her mother had stitched with great care, raised suspicions. Was it torn during a robbery or a struggle? Megan's parents certainly didn't think it was a simple suicide. There were too many contradictions, too many questions that hadn't been answered. So, here's where we stand today. Megan's case has been ruled a suicide, but her family refuses to accept that conclusion. They have been pushing for a more thorough investigation, as new pieces of evidence, like the torn purse and the strange behavior surrounding her phone, suggest that something far darker may have occurred. With no clear answers, the family is calling for more to be done, and they are asking for the case to be reopened. The truth remains buried, hidden beneath layers of confusion and inconsistent evidence. And Megan's family is determined to keep fighting for answers, even if it means going to great lengths to uncover the truth. What happened to Megan Trussell? Was it a tragic accident, a botched robbery, or something far more sinister? If you have any information regarding this case, please contact the authorities or reach out to Megan's family through the contact information provided. Every tip counts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates. And remember, sometimes the smallest detail can help crack a case wide open. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the evidence, the theories, and the people involved. But before we dive in, if you haven't already, be sure to leave a comment about where you're watching from and let us know if you think the investigation was handled properly. Your input is invaluable, and who knows, it might just help us uncover more pieces of this tragic puzzle. Now let's move forward. After Megan's body was found 6 days after her disappearance, the authorities initially ruled it a suicide. But as we've already discussed, Megan's family and many of us are left perplexed by the many inconsistencies surrounding this case. Was it truly suicide, or was something more sinister at play? Let's take a closer look at the key details that have made the investigation so complicated. When investigators found Megan's body, it was in a location that seemed almost inaccessible to a person walking alone in the dark. The embankment where she was found could only be reached by rappelling down a steep slope, making it highly unlikely that Megan simply wandered down there alone. Remember, she had been last seen in relatively light clothing for such a chilly evening, wearing red pants and a denim jacket, not exactly appropriate for a hike or a long walk. Not only that, but the condition of her body raised additional questions. Her clothing was found disheveled, and there was a strange detail that stood out to her parents. Megan was missing one shoe. This detail, though seemingly small, set off alarm bells for Megan's family. Why would she have only one shoe? Could she have been attacked and someone tried to remove it? Or perhaps it had been torn off during a struggle. The missing shoe was just another unsettling piece in an already troubling puzzle. But even more puzzling were the bruises and abrasions found on Megan's body. There were large contusions on her arms and legs, and abrasions on her back, face, and chest. Some of these injuries, such as the broken teeth, indicated a possible struggle or impact before her fall. The authorities dismissed these injuries as being caused by the fall, but Megan's family didn't buy that explanation. How could someone fall down a slope and end up with bruises in so many places, including the head? It seemed more likely that Megan had been in some kind of altercation before falling. The next shocking discovery came when the coroner's report revealed that Megan's stomach contained a large amount of undigested pills. Specifically, there was abundant pill material, something that both the coroner and Megan's family found troubling. Although it was confirmed that Megan had a prescription for Adderall, the discovery raised more questions than answers. How did the pills end up in her stomach? And why hadn't they been fully absorbed yet? More importantly, could someone have forced her to swallow these pills? Megan's family was adamant that she would never have intentionally overdosed. They had spoken to her just days before she disappeared, and there were no signs that she was in a troubled state of mind. In fact, she was excited about her college life, enjoying her classes, and reconnecting with friends. She was not someone who had shown any signs of suicidal thoughts. So what happened to her? Megan's phone and purse were two of the most important pieces of evidence in this case, and both went missing shortly after her death. It wasn't until weeks later that Megan's mother, Vanessa, took matters into her own hands and discovered that her daughter's phone had been sold at an EcoATM kiosk by a homeless man named Elliot Buffer. This discovery sparked even more questions. The phone had been wiped clean before it was sold, making it impossible to recover any data from it. However, investigators were able to track some phone activity, and the phone had pinged several times in the days following Megan's disappearance. These pings suggested that someone had used the phone after her death, further complicating the timeline of events. Megan's purse was also found a few miles away from where her body was discovered. It was found by a woman riding her bike near Highway 36, a location that was nowhere near Boulder Canyon. The purse had a torn clasp, something that Megan's mother found extremely odd. She had made that purse herself, and the clasp had been reinforced with special stitching. The damage didn't seem to make sense. Could the purse have been ripped during a struggle, or had someone torn it off her during an attack? The fact that her purse was found far from the scene, with some of its contents still inside, including a prescription bottle for Adderall, raises more questions. Could someone have tried to dispose of the purse after taking the phone and leaving the scene? Or was the purse simply discarded by the person who had taken it? No one knew for sure. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that the authorities had missed crucial opportunities to connect the dots. The fact that Megan's phone had been sold by a homeless man with ties to the Boulder Canyon area seemed to suggest that Megan had been in that area before her death. Yet, the police had failed to thoroughly investigate the circumstances surrounding the sale of the phone. The authorities' failure to test crucial pieces of evidence, such as blood found near the area where Megan's body was discovered, added to the family's frustration. Additionally, Megan's fingernail clippings and the swabs taken during the autopsy were never analyzed, and the family couldn't understand why. Given the suspicious circumstances surrounding Megan's death and the lack of a thorough investigation, Megan's parents decided to take matters into their own hands. They have been raising funds for a private investigation and have actively sought out leads from anyone who might know something about the case. Megan's case is not closed for her family. They believe that law enforcement has missed key clues and have failed to conduct a thorough investigation. The presence of the undigested pill material, the torn purse, the bruises, and the missing shoe all suggest that something far more sinister happened to Megan than what has been officially acknowledged. As the family continues to push for answers, they are calling for a full, independent investigation. They've even set up a GoFundMe page to raise funds for private investigators to follow up on leads and push the authorities to re-examine the evidence. If you have any information that could help solve this case, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact the authorities directly or get in touch with Megan's family via the details provided. There is still hope for justice, but it requires a collective effort of the public to help bring the truth to light. Before we continue, if you haven't yet, be sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated on this case. If you have any information or insights, don't hesitate to contact the authorities or reach out to Megan's family. Every small piece of information could be the key to solving this mystery. As the investigation progresses, new pieces of evidence continue to surface, some of which add weight to the idea that Megan's death was far more complicated than a suicide. One of the most perplexing pieces of evidence is the mass of undigested pill material found in Megan's stomach. While it was initially assumed that she overdosed on Adderall, her prescription medication, the discovery of the pills raises more questions. The coroner's initial conclusion that the pills were the cause of death didn't sit right with Megan's parents, who knew their daughter's character and habits well. Megan had no history of suicidal thoughts, and she had been actively pursuing her dreams at the University of Colorado. This detail alone was enough to push her family to demand more answers. The toxicology report indicated that Megan had ingested a large amount of amphetamines, but the report did not determine exactly how or why the pills had ended up in her stomach. The key question was whether she took them willingly or if someone else had forced her to ingest them. Could she have been drugged or coerced into swallowing the pills during an attack? Or was it something more sinister, like foul play at work? These questions have haunted Megan's family as they search for the truth. One of the most compelling theories that has emerged is that Megan's death was the result of a struggle that turned fatal. After all, the bruises, the torn purse, the missing shoe, and the injuries sustained from her fall suggest that Megan didn't simply walk into the canyon and throw herself down the slope. Instead, the evidence points to a potential robbery or assault gone terribly wrong. Megan's prized crossbody purse, something her mother had made for her, was found with a torn clasp. This damage was not consistent with someone simply throwing themselves down a slope. It suggests that Megan was possibly grabbed or fought off during a confrontation. The fact that her purse was found miles away from the scene, discarded in a completely different location, strengthens the idea that she was attacked, and perhaps the thief or attacker discarded her belongings in a panic, trying to distance themselves from the crime. The injuries to Megan's body, bruises, abrasions, and broken teeth also point to a violent struggle. The sheer amount of physical trauma she sustained suggests that something or someone caused her fall, either during the struggle or because she was pushed in a panic. If we consider the theory of robbery gone wrong, it's possible that Megan was walking alone in the cold and dark when someone tried to take her purse or belongings. In the chaos of the confrontation, she might have been pushed down the slope, causing the injuries and ultimately contributing to her death. Another unsettling possibility is that the struggle escalated into a sexual assault attempt. The injuries could have been inflicted during a fight, and the missing shoe and torn clothing might suggest signs of a violent altercation. If Megan had resisted and fought back, this could have triggered her attacker to push her down the slope, ultimately resulting in her death from the fall, exposure, and subsequent injuries. As we discussed earlier, Megan's phone and purse were found in the hands of homeless individuals living near the Boulder Canyon area. The phone was sold at an EcoATM by a man named Elliot Buffer, who had ties to the area, and the purse was discovered by a cyclist who noticed it near a bike trail. Both of these discoveries raised further suspicions about whether the homeless community had more insight into Megan's death than they were letting on. The investigation into Elliot Buffer and another homeless man, Alexander Connor, only deepened the mystery. According to Connor, he had found Megan's purse near the Boulder Canyon encampment and later dumped it in a completely different location. However, his story doesn't completely align with the facts. While he did return to Boulder Canyon to collect his belongings after his release from jail, there's no explanation for how he came to possess Megan's purse before abandoning it. Furthermore, his claim that he found Megan's purse lying unattended in the open seems incredibly unlikely, considering the circumstances of her death and the fact that her belongings were likely taken during a struggle. Connor's version of events also raises questions about his credibility. He claimed that he didn't know Megan, yet he was seen with her belongings, including her purse. This discrepancy alone demands further investigation. Authorities were quick to dismiss any potential connection between Connor and Megan, but the timeline and his involvement with the purse only raised more questions. Could he have been lying to cover up a deeper connection to Megan's disappearance? Additionally, we cannot ignore the role of the homeless encampment in the area. Boulder Canyon is known for its high homeless population and its reputation for drugs and crime. Megan's body was discovered near this encampment, and it's possible that she crossed paths with someone from the area before her tragic death. This theory would align with the findings of the broken purse clasp, the missing shoe, and the violent injuries on her body. As Megan's family continues to press for justice, they are demanding a more thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding her death. The lack of analysis of critical evidence, such as Megan's fingernail clippings and the blood found near the area where her body was discovered, suggests that key aspects of the case were overlooked. The authorities initially ruled Megan's death a suicide, but as more evidence comes to light, it's increasingly clear that the case was not handled with the care it required. The torn purse, the strange circumstances surrounding the sale of Megan's phone, and the unexplained injuries all suggest that Megan's death may not have been a suicide, as the authorities initially concluded. It's possible that someone knows more about what happened that night than they are willing to admit, and the investigation into the homeless individuals who were in possession of Megan's belongings could hold the key to unlocking the truth. In light of these new developments, the most pressing question remains: who was responsible for Megan's death, and why was the investigation handled so poorly? Was a robbery gone wrong, a sexual assault that escalated into violence, or something else entirely? For Megan's family, the fight for justice is far from over. They have raised funds for private investigators to continue digging into the case, and they are calling on authorities to reopen the investigation and take a closer look at the evidence that was ignored. They are determined to uncover the truth and bring those responsible to justice. If you've been following along and believe in the importance of this case, please like, share, and subscribe so you can stay updated as we continue our quest for the truth. And remember, if you have any information, no matter how small, it could make all the difference in uncovering what really happened to Megan. As we move forward in Megan's case, it's impossible to ignore the clear discrepancies in how the investigation has been handled. From the very beginning, Megan's family has questioned the ruling of her death as a suicide, and with each new revelation, it becomes harder to believe that the initial determination was accurate. One of the most concerning aspects of this case is how Megan's body was found after the initial searches failed to uncover her. When Megan's body was discovered in the Boulder Canyon area, it was in a place that had already been extensively searched by rescue teams. In fact, according to Megan's family, searchers had been within mere feet of where her body was located, yet they didn't find her. How could they have missed a body in such a visible location, especially with her bright red pants clearly visible? This oversight raises a critical question. Was Megan's body placed in the canyon after the initial search efforts had taken place? Did someone move her body? Or did it take that long for her body to be discovered because it was hidden or overlooked? Megan's family has suggested that there may have been a deliberate attempt to cover up what really happened to her. The fact that her body was found in an area that had already been searched multiple times only adds fuel to this theory. Was her body relocated to ensure that it would be found later, after the investigation had cooled down? Another significant piece of evidence that hasn't been adequately explained is Megan's purse. The purse was found miles away from the scene where her body was located, and it had a torn clasp, something her mother had reinforced with special stitching. The purse's damage was inconsistent with the idea of Megan simply dying by suicide. If she had taken the pills and gone to the canyon to end her life, why would she have kept her purse, let alone allow it to be torn during a struggle? The condition of the purse points to a violent confrontation, which could involve someone who was after her belongings. The torn clasp is a clue that screams struggle. It's highly unlikely that this kind of damage would occur if Megan had simply wandered into the canyon on her own volition. The fact that her purse was discarded in a completely different area from where her body was found suggests that someone wanted to distance themselves from the crime. This act of discarding the purse could indicate that Megan's attacker was trying to cover up the evidence of a violent encounter. For Megan's family, the torn purse is a stark reminder of the struggle their daughter likely faced in her final moments, and is an image they can't shake as they continue to search for the truth. The discovery of Megan's phone, sold by a homeless man named Elliot Buffer at an EcoATM kiosk, was one of the more telling pieces of evidence that came to light after her death. The phone, which was wiped clean before it was sold, had been used by someone after Megan's disappearance. But despite its sale, the phone's location ping showed activity during the days following her death. This activity indicates that Megan's phone was in possession of someone who knew about her location, further complicating the timeline of events. The fact that Megan's phone was sold in EcoATM by Elliot Buffer adds yet another layer of suspicion. According to police records, Buffer initially claimed that he found the phone on a trail, but later changed his story to say that someone named Travis had given him the phone to sell. However, Travis, the man Buffer referred to, had been in jail during the time Megan went missing, making his involvement in the case seem unlikely. Yet, Buffer's version of events has not been thoroughly challenged. Furthermore, the police were slow to follow up on this lead. The fact that Buffer's story didn't line up with the facts raised red flags, but it took weeks before authorities connected the dots and fully investigated his involvement. The slow response from law enforcement in pursuing the phone's trail has left Megan's family frustrated. It is another example of how the investigation has been plagued with errors and missed opportunities. As we discussed earlier, the most perplexing aspect of Megan's death was the discovery of undigested pills in her stomach. While the toxicology report confirmed the presence of amphetamines, specifically Adderall, the level of the drugs in her system was deemed to be toxic but not fatal. The question remains: if Megan intended to commit suicide by overdosing on her prescribed medication, why did she not wait for the effects of the drug to take hold before her death? Why would she make the choice to walk out into the cold, dark night and climb down a treacherous slope, knowing the risks involved? They believe that the authorities missed critical opportunities to connect the dots and fully investigate the evidence, especially the blood found near where Megan's body was discovered. Megan's family doesn't believe the suicide theory. They argue that their daughter was too optimistic, too engaged with her life and studies, to take her own life. They point to her recent texts and the way she had been talking about her future. There was no indication that she was depressed or in a dark place, so the idea of her choosing to end her life seems out of character. If Megan didn't die from an overdose, how did the pills end up in her stomach? Could she have been forced to swallow them during an attack or struggle? Did someone try to silence her in a violent manner? Or did the presence of the drugs suggest something more sinister, like an attempt to manipulate the circumstances surrounding her death? At this point, it's clear that Megan's death has raised more questions than answers. The inconsistencies in the investigation, the missing evidence, and the suspicious circumstances surrounding the discovery of her body all point to a need for a thorough reexamination of the case. Megan's family is demanding that the authorities reopen the investigation and conduct a full forensic review, including testing the missing items that have yet to be analyzed. Furthermore, the family is calling for DNA testing on Megan's belongings, including her clothing, purse, and shoes, to see if any of the homeless individuals who had possession of her items are connected to crime. The family is also determined to continue raising awareness about Megan's case, and they are actively working with private investigators to explore all possible leads. They've set up a GoFundMe page to help finance the search for the truth and have been tirelessly advocating for justice. For Megan's family, the fight isn't over. They won't stop until they get the answers they deserve. As we wrap up this part of Megan's story, It's clear that her death is shrouded in mystery. With each new discovery, it becomes more apparent that the original investigation may have overlooked critical evidence. The torn purse, the undigested pills, the phone trail, and the conflicting statement from the individuals involved all suggest that Megan's death was not as simple as it was initially deemed. Before we continue, don't forget to hit that like button. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to stay updated. If you have any information, no matter how small, that could help shed light on what really happened to Megan, please don't hesitate to reach out. The family continues to seek justice, and they need all the help they can get. Let's now dive into what comes next for Megan's family as they fight for the answers they deserve. Despite the mounting evidence suggesting that Megan's death was not a suicide, her case has officially been ruled as such, and the authorities have closed it. However, Megan's family believes the case was mishandled from the start and continues to push for it to be reopened. They feel that the investigation was rushed, that key evidence was overlooked, and that too many questions were left unanswered. The family's primary concern is the lack of a comprehensive forensic review. For instance, Megan's clothing, including her shoes, as well as her purse, haven't been thoroughly analyzed for DNA or other potential evidence. There's also the matter of the blood found in the area where Megan was discovered. The family believes that these pieces of evidence could hold the key to understanding what truly happened to Megan. However, without further investigation, these critical clues may remain buried. The fact that the authorities haven't taken action to pursue these leads has been incredibly frustrating for Megan's family. They've spent months gathering evidence on their own, reaching out to private investigators, and conducting their own research. Despite their best efforts, it often feels like they're fighting an uphill battle against a system that has already closed the case. One of the most crucial steps in the investigation is the need for thorough DNA testing. Megan's family is pushing for DNA analysis on her belongings, including her purse, shoes, and clothing, as well as on the blood found near the location where her body was discovered. If any unidentified DNA is found, it could potentially lead to a breakthrough in the case. Furthermore, the family has repeatedly requested that the coroner's office conduct a more detailed examination of the pill material found in Megan's stomach. The fact that the material was never properly tested has left many questions about the true cause of Megan's death. Could the pills have been ingested against her will, or was there something more sinister at play? Until this piece of evidence is analyzed, the family believes that the investigation cannot be considered complete. But the difficulty lies in the fact that the authorities have closed the case, and reopening it requires significant pressure from the public, the family, and even legal assistance. Megan's parents have already raised funds through their GoFundMe page, but the process of hiring private investigators and pushing for action from law enforcement has been slow and challenging. Without a significant breakthrough, it's unclear whether the authorities will take the necessary steps to reopen the case. Throughout this process, Megan's family has made it clear that they need public support to continue pushing for justice. The media has been a crucial part of this effort. By sharing their story on social media, podcasts, and YouTube channels, they've been able to raise awareness about the flaws in the original investigation and generate the public pressure needed to demand more action. The power of public opinion can be a powerful tool when it comes to reopening cold cases or putting pressure on law enforcement to do their job. Megan's family has worked tirelessly to engage with the media and ensure that her case is not forgotten. They've shared their story with anyone who would listen, hoping that someone, somewhere, has the key piece of information that will break the case wide open. Additionally, the involvement of private investigators has proven invaluable. Private investigators can often dedicate more time and resources to a case than public authorities can. They can follow up on leads, conduct interviews, and work to uncover the truth in ways that law enforcement may not have capacity to do. This approach has already led some new insights into the case, including interviews with people who may have had contact with Megan shortly before her disappearance. The two main individuals connected to Megan's belongings, Elliot Buffer and Alexander Connor, remain key figures in the investigation. The discrepancy in their stories about how they came into possession of Megan's purse and phone is a critical issue. While both men claim they had no connection to Megan, the timeline and the facts don't add up. Buffer's story has changed several times. First, he claimed that he found Megan's phone on a trail. Later, he said that a man named Travis gave him the phone to sell. But the problem with this story is that Travis was in jail during the time Megan went missing, raising doubts about the truth of Buffer's statements. Authorities have not fully investigated the possibility that these men may have been involved in Megan's death, and the lack of thorough inquiry into their backgrounds and motives is troubling. Megan's family has also called for more interviews with people in the homeless community who may have seen something or who may have information that could shed light on what happened that night. The homeless encampment near where Megan's body was found could hold critical clues. If anyone in the community witnessed anything unusual or had contact with Megan before her death, this information could prove invaluable. At this point, it's clear that the public can play a crucial role in helping Megan's family get the answers they deserve. Megan's case has gained widespread attention, but it's not enough. More tips, more people speaking out, and more pressure on the authorities are needed to ensure that this case isn't swept under the rug. If you have any information, no matter how small, it could help solve this case. Sometimes it's the smallest detail that makes all the difference in uncovering the truth. If you or someone you know was in the Boulder Canyon area on the night of February 9th, 2025, and saw anything unusual, please reach out to the authorities or Megan's family. They need your help. As Megan's family continues to fight for justice, they remain hopeful that the truth will eventually come to light. They won't stop until they have answers, and they will continue to seek justice for their daughter. In the coming weeks, Megan's family will continue to push for further investigation. They are calling for a full review of the case, including the analysis of all evidence that was previously overlooked. They are also seeking to work with private investigators to uncover any new leads that could help solve the case. Additionally, they hope to keep the pressure on law enforcement to reopen the investigation, as they believe that the evidence points to foul play, not suicide. Megan's case remains unsolved, but her family's determination to get justice continues to grow. With the help of the public, media, and private investigators, they hope to piece together the truth and bring those responsible to justice. If you want to help, please consider donating to Megan's family's GoFundMe page or sharing this story to raise awareness. The more attention this case receives, the closer we get to uncovering the truth. Thank you for your continued support, and stay tuned as we continue to follow Megan's case and bring you the latest developments as the investigation progresses. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Your engagement brings more attention to this case and helps keep Megan's story alive. Now, let's dive into the latest updates in the case and explore how the family continues to search for the answers they so desperately need. Since the last update, Megan's family has not given up their fight. They continue to call for a reexamination of the case, and they are determined to ensure that all leads are fully explored. There have been a few significant developments, some of which might provide new hope for finding the truth behind Megan's death. One of the critical pieces of evidence that has resurfaced is the video footage from the night Megan was last seen. Megan was captured on surveillance cameras leaving her dorm at 9:36 p.m., but after that, there's no additional footage of her. The last sighting of her is near the Champion Center on campus, but after that, she seemingly disappears. Despite an exhaustive search and investigation, no new footage has been found in the area where Megan's body was eventually discovered, further complicating the timeline of events. However, after a more thorough examination of the footage, the family's private investigators have started to uncover inconsistencies in the initial assessment. For instance, there may have been additional footage that the original investigators overlooked. With new eyes on the case, the family believes that these missed details could help piece together more of the puzzle. Additionally, Megan's parents have been in constant communication with local officials, urging them to investigate new leads that have come to light. They are specifically asking for a closer look at the individuals who were in the Boulder Canyon area on the night of her disappearance. The homeless population near the canyon remains a significant focus, with several potential witnesses coming forward to report unusual activity in the area that night. One of the most perplexing aspects of the case remains the missing shoe. As mentioned before, Megan was found without one of her shoes, and it has never been located. The absence of this shoe has led to multiple theories, with some suggesting that it may have been removed during a violent struggle. Could someone have taken it off her as part of a robbery, or could it have been removed as a sign of humiliation, or to further control her during an assault? The family believes the missing shoe is more than just a trivial detail. They argue that it's a symbol of the struggle Megan likely endured before her death, and the shoe's disappearance could be the key to understanding what happened to her. While the authorities have not given the missing shoe the attention it deserves, Megan's parents continue to call for a search of the area where she was found to see if it might have been discarded or hidden nearby. There's also the unresolved issue of the blood found in the area near where Megan's body was discovered. The blood, which was not properly analyzed at the time of discovery, could hold crucial information that might connect Megan's attacker to the scene. The family has been adamant that the blood be tested for DNA, but as of now, there has been no progress on that front. As the investigation continues, private investigators working with Megan's family have uncovered new leads that could point to potential suspects or witnesses who have not been thoroughly interviewed. One such lead involves a person who was seen near the area where Megan's body was discovered shortly before the search teams arrived. This individual has yet to be questioned by the authorities, and the family is pressing for law enforcement to follow up on this lead to determine if there's a connection to Megan's case. There is also the growing concern that certain individuals involved in the case may have been involved in other similar incidents, making it critical for law enforcement to conduct a more extensive background check. Could Megan have been a victim of a serial predator, or was her death an isolated incident? The family believes that the full investigation should include an examination of the backgrounds of those who were in the area that night, particularly the homeless individuals who were in possession of her belongings. The theory of a struggle gone wrong remains one of the most plausible scenarios. Could Megan have fought back against someone who tried to steal her belongings or harm her? The torn purse, missing shoe, and injuries on her body all suggest that Megan may have been involved in a violent altercation before her death, whether it was a robbery or something more personal. The family is convinced that the evidence points to foul play, not suicide. Despite the numerous questions that remain unanswered, Megan's family is undeterred in their quest for justice. They continue to push for a public re-examination of the case, and they are determined to ensure that every piece of evidence is given the attention it deserves. The case has gained significant media attention, but for Megan's family, this isn't enough. They want more than just headlines. They want answers. In the coming months, the family plans to hold press conferences, share new developments, and continue to raise awareness about the inconsistencies in the investigation. They're also in the process of contacting legal experts to help them navigate the challenges of reopening the case, as they believe there is enough evidence to warrant further scrutiny. Megan's story is far from over. Every day, her family gets closer to the truth, and they won't stop until they uncover it. The injustice they feel is palpable, but their determination to see this case to remain stronger than ever. They are committed to making sure that Megan's voice is heard and that those responsible for her death are held accountable. If you have any information that can help solve Megan's case, please don't hesitate to reach out. Whether you were in the Boulder Canyon area on the night of February 9th, 2025, or if you know someone who might have witnessed something unusual, your tip could make all the difference. Megan's family continues to call for justice, and they need your help. There's a $2,000 reward for any information that leads to an arrest and conviction, and your contribution, no matter how small, could bring the family the closure they desperately need. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on this case. We will continue to follow the investigation and provide the latest news. Together, we can ensure that Megan's story doesn't fade into the background. Let's keep fighting for justice and keep Megan's memory alive. Thank you for your support. Stay tuned for further updates in the next part of this ongoing investigation.